When I say mass shooting, there is something that immediately comes to mind, a very specific kind of public, media-focused, random killing of innocent people by a gunman. Is it true that those kinds of killings are virtually all taking place in an area called a gun-free zone? And if so, are these gun-free zones actually ripe for mass shootings? This is a reality check you won't see anywhere else. The debate over gun-free zones is a heated one. Conservative media, after a shooting like the one at the Umpqua Community College in Oregon, immediately begin to say that we need to consider gun-free zones as part of the problem. Media on the left fires back that those claims are simply untrue. Take, for instance, an article published by Media Matters for America. It states this, quote, "Despite claims about gun-free zones, the overwhelming majority of mass shootings actually occur where guns are allowed to be carried." So where are the numbers to back that statement up? Well, it actually comes from a report from a group called Everytown for Gun Safety. That report was published last year. It states that only 14% of mass public shootings take place in gun-free zones, only 14%. Everytown claims that 86% of such incidents occurred in places where guns are allowed. The only problem with that analysis is that according to the Crime Prevention Research Center, the Everytown analysis is wrong. Very wrong. See, Everytown's recent analysis of mass shootings is riddled with errors. Mistakes are made on a number of mass shootings, as well as the extent of mental illness, the killer's ages, and even where the attacks occurred. So what are the correct numbers? Well, in order to get them, Crime Prevention Research Center looked at mass public shootings since the beginning of 2009. They focused on attacks that have particularly terrified Americans, the mass shootings that take place in public places. These are shootings about which they say the point of such crimes is to kill as many people as possible and create as much carnage as possible in order to obtain media attention. Also, they focused exclusively on shootings, excluding such attacks as the 2013 Boston Marathon bombing. They also exclude gang violence and turf wars, again focusing only on mass shootings designed to create terror. In those cases, what did they find? Well, from January of 2009 through the middle of July of 2014, there were 25 mass public shootings where at least 4 people were killed with a gun. Of those shootings, 8% of mass public shootings have occurred in places where civilians are allowed to defend themselves. But the other 92% happened in a so-called gun-free zone. Aside from those statistics, consider what some of these mass shooters themselves have said. Elliot Rodger, who shot to death 3 people in Santa Barbara, explained why he picked his target. In his 141-page manifesto, he said that he chose to skip at least one location for the shooting because he worried that someone with a gun, specifically armed police, might stop him before he could kill enough people. Or James Holmes, the killer at the Colorado movie theater. He lived within a 20-minute drive of 7 movie theaters that were showing the premiere of the Batman movie. But he chose the one single theater that banned guns. And possibly the most shocking example to people, the Fort Hood shooting in 2009, where 13 people were killed, 30 others were wounded. Or the Washington, D.C. Naval Yard shooting where 12 people were killed and 8 wounded. Or even the Navy Recruiting Center in Chattanooga, Tennessee earlier this year, where 4 Marines were killed. All 3 military installations that are gun-free zones, with the exception of military police who are allowed to be armed. So what you need to know is that, first of all, there's no way to really know if most of these shooters knew they were in gun-free zones or if they targeted those areas because of it. But the question is not just a fair one, it's an important one. Are these zones, which are designed to make people safer with the best of intentions, actually making the victims of these attackers easy targets? Take the politics out of it so that we can have a real discussion here about whether or not gun-free zones are actually accomplishing what they're meant to do, or if they're making more victims than they need to. That's Reality Check. Let's talk about that tonight on Twitter.